first 6 chapters of the preacher has shared with us his search for meaning, from his own perspective, from his own observations, from his own experience, his observation during the course of his search. You can see in chapter 3, chapter 3, we see that his conclusion was, his repeated conclusion was, everything under the sun, everything here, vanity is vanity. Life under the sun is vanity. If there is good that one can do, provided one is blessed by God. In relating experience of his search and observation, he shared counsel of living under the sun. For example, the value of friendship. That is a big part of our lives, where it is better to have someone with us to go through our battles, through our someone to share our someone to share our ups and downs. And also in his search and his observation, there is also a proper way to approach in worship. You can't just promise God something. You can't just come into church and just be here and go through the motions. In the remaining 6 chapters, the preacher continues to share his counsel through a mixture of proverbs and narration, imparting wisdom designed to make the most of life under the sun. He's not saying to that everything here, everything that we accomplish, everything that we acquire is for nothing. And he said, enjoy it, because it is a gift of God. While life under the sun is vanity, how then should we live? There is wealth of wisdom found in these chapters. Too much to cover in detail in this series. We will simply survey the preacher's counsel as we make our way through the book. We are now in chapter 7. We've gone the first 6 chapters. With that in mind, let's take a look at chapter 7, verses 1 to 14. A good name is better than a precious ointment in the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all man. And the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyed the heart. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger rested in the bosom of fools. Say not thou, what is the cost that the former days were better than these? For thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. Wisdom is good with inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. Consider the work of God, for who can make that straight which he had made crooked? In a day of prosperity be joyful, but in a day of adversity consider. God also has set the one over against the other, to the end the man should find nothing after him. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this wonderful morning. Thank you for this opportunity to speak of your word. Pray that you empower me, Lord. Give me the wisdom, and pray, Lord, give us the blessing you have in store for us through your word. Again, we want to praise and thank you in Christ's most precious name. We pray. Amen. We can see here that we find a series of comparisons, and let's note the frequent use of better. For example, the preacher would have us understand that honor is better than luxury. We can see that in verse 1. A good name is better than precious ointment. Here the preacher is extolling the value of a good reputation. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 1. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 1. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. This ointment, this is a representation of luxury. Why this is so? We have already seen the vanity of wealth. We may leave it for someone who is foolish. At the end of the day, whatever we acquire, whatever we accomplish, someone else is gonna, after our life here on earth, someone else is gonna benefit off of it. And we've seen, maybe we've heard of stories where a person dies and they said, we don't have anybody to give their inheritance or their what they have acquired over the years to someone else because they have nobody to give it to. Unless God gives us the ability to enjoy it, it is all for naught. In chapter 6, verse 1 and 2, there is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is common among men, a man to whom God had given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanted nothing for his soul of all that he desired. Yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it is an evil disease. Unless God gives us the ability to enjoy it, it is all for nothing. Good reputation finds honor before God and men and benefits us after death. This is talking about the legacy that you leave here on earth. The legacy that you are paving here on earth. Like your name is better than whatever you can acquire here. Your name will last. A good reputation will last longer than what you have acquired. Yes, as it did in the elders of the Old Testament. Hebrews chapter 11, Hebrews chapter 11, if I can find it. Hebrews chapter 11, and in verses 2 and verse 39. Verse 2, for by it elders obtain a good report. In verse 39, and these all have obtained a good report through faith, receive not the promise. You see here that Hebrews is the what is it called again? Faith and divine. People that have exemplified their faith. That showed their faith that became our guidance, our what's a good word for this? Example? No, there's another word that I'm looking for. It is our guidebook. This is our people that have exemplified their faith. A guidebook that helps us to understand how it is to give faith, how it is to put our faith in God and show that there is promise that we can hold on to in God. Chapter 10, verse 20. Chapter 10, verse 20. Notwithstanding in this rejoice not that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. Also in Philippians chapter 4, verse 3. Chapter 4 and verse 3. And I entreat thee also, true yoke fellow, help these women which labored. 4 verse 3, sorry. And I entreat thee also, true yoke fellow, help those women which labored with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and with other my fellow laborers whose names are in the book of life. Our names already are written in the book of life. A good reputation definitely stays longer and has better meaning, just the same as the book of faith, the chapter that we just read, the elders of the Old Testament. So in that So in what time we have in this life, it is better spent making a good name for ourselves than accumulating wealth. Next, the preacher shares what may be shocking revelation to some. Your death day is better than your birthday. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all man, and the living will lay it to his heart. The day of one's death is better than the day in which they were born. Of course, this assumes one has first made a good name for themselves. How is this? How is this so? The day of one's birth is the beginning of many sorrows. As Job observed and even cursed the day of his birth, let's see that in Job chapter 14. Man that is born of a woman is of few days and full of trouble. He, as soon as you're born, you're pretty much gonna feel sorrow. You're gonna feel all of these things that makes us, sad. It makes us, feel weary. After this, in Job chapter 3, verses 1 to 3, after this opened Job his mouth and cursed its day. And Job spake and said, Let the day perish wherein I was born, in the night in which it was said, there is a man child conceived. The preacher was talking about how it is better for someone who has never seen a day of light. That they don't have to see the evil here, that they don't have to feel the sorrow, that they don't have to feel the emptiness in life. Job definitely cursed that day wherein he said, I don't want anybody else to go through this. Job definitely went through a lot. The day of one's birth is the beginning of many sorrows. But for the righteous, the day of one's death is the beginning of eternal bliss. Isaiah chapter 57, verses 1 to 2. The righteous perisheth, and no man layeth it to his heart. And the merciful men are taken away, none considering that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. In verse 2, he shall enter into peace, they shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness. For the righteous, the day of one's death is the beginning of eternal bliss. Once we are taken, we shall enter into peace, they shall rest in their beds, each one walking in uprightness. The day of one's death for the righteous is the day that we join with the Lord, to go be with the Lord. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 21 and 22. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. But if I live in the flesh, this is the fruit of my labor. Yet what shall I choose? I want not. The day that we die is a glorious day. No more sorrows, no more tears, no more fears. We get to be with God. We get to be with our Savior. We don't have to feel pain. We get to be, the day of the righteous's death, are blessed to be at rest from their labors. In Revelation chapter 14 and verse 13, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yes, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. speaking of the day of one's death leads naturally to the next bit of counsel from the preacher. A funeral is better than a party. In verses 2 to 6 of our text, it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of the mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. Everybody loves a party, but everybody needs to attend a funeral. Why? The preacher tells us why. For that is the end of all men. Life under the sun is not forever. Life here is not forever. We must all die and face what follows next. Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 27. Verse 27, and as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment. We must all, we are going to die and we're going to face judgment. And the living will take it to heart. A funeral reminds us of the brevity of life and the eventuality of death. A funeral forces us to face reality and encourages us to prepare for it. If you remember the last funeral you've ever gone to, the eulogies, the people speaking of the one that passed away, they talk about the things that they've done, the good things, how they've helped people, how they've touched people, how they've the things they accomplished. But majority of the time, like, you will hear them like, oh yeah, so-and-so was a great man, or so-and-so was a great woman. And remember that one time when I was not at my best, he was the one who reached out. She was the one who reached out. Our life here is not forever. It forces us to face reality and encourages us to prepare for it. Sorrow is better than laughter. The preacher explains further by why it is good to attend a funeral. Laughter may have its place, but sorrow is superior to making the heart better. Chapter 12 and verse 11 of Hebrews. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, after it yieldeth the peaceful fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. The laughter provides a temporary reprieve from the burdens of life, but sorrow, especially at a funeral, encourages us to make positive changes. For this reason, the wise person will be found often in the funeral parlor, while the fool would rather spend time at a party. I think it's good to enjoy the gift that God has given us. In life, enjoy it. The wise would rather spend time knowing how such person lived, how such person made a good reputation in this earth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear the song of fools. At a funeral, one is likely to hear the rebuke of the wise. At a party, the song of fools. But the laughter of fools is like the crackling of thorns in the fire, and is vanity. Thorns make a lot of noise, but they burn quickly, provide little heat, and are therefore of little value. So also the laughter and the songs of the foolish. We can see that oftentimes we get like, don't do this. Don't be like, there would be times where in a funeral, like, don't be like this person. He may have lived his life, but made terrible choices in life. We can, it helps us to become wise. It helps us to make better choices. Why did preacher inserted the proverb of verse 7? I am not sure, though the point is well taken. However, the next comparison states that the end is better than the beginning. In verse 8, better is the end of the thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. This is similar to what we have already seen, that the day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. But a principle has application to more than just one's overall life. How is this so? Many projects start with good intentions, but are not completed. It is when they are finished that we can truly look back with satisfaction. Many things begin with grief and difficulty, only to end in joy and peace. Psalm 126 and verses 5 to 6. Psalm 126. Verses 5 to 6. As for such as turn aside unto their crooked ways. Verses 5 and 6 of 126. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. He that goeth forth and weepeth, bearing precious seeds, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. How is it that, the preacher is telling us that the end is better than the beginning. Beginning, a lot of people, probably the best example of this is the New Year's resolution. A lot of people, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start eating healthy. I'm going to start exercising. But then throughout the course of months, weeks, even days sometimes, like they falter because they saw how the hardship of following through that resolution. But for those that stuck to their resolution, to those that stuck to their goal for the year, the end result, you can see their progress, the end result of what they have gone through. You can see their joy at that, their peace at that. Then those that are like, oh yeah, I'll start again next year. It's not going to be easy to get to the end, to that goal, to finish that goal. Our primary concern should be how things will turn out in the end, rather than how they may look at the beginning. To help us keep focus on the end, it is good to remember that patience is better than pride. Verses 8 to 9 of our text. Better is the end of thing than beginning thereof, and the patient is in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Being hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger rested in the bosom of fools. Pride is evil and is of the world, and patience is a virtue to be pursued by the man of God. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 11. But thou, O man of God, flee these things, and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness. Patience is a virtue to be pursued by the man of God. Why patience is better than pride? Pride leads to contention and destruction. Pride leads to anger, which resides in the heart of the foolish. While patience, on the other hand, is indicative of wisdom and necessary to salvation. Another gem of wisdom that leads to better living is understanding that the present is better than the past. We are not to say, why were the former days better? People often reminisce about the good old days. They often bemoan that things were better then than now. Why is one not wise thinking this? Memory has a way of forgetting bad things in the past. Even if one experiences trials in the present, there is cause for rejoicing. We may neglect opportunities for much good in the present by dwelling on the past. And we can see that people that dwell on the past tend to be, as demeanor of a sad demeanor. Of like, oh, this used to be better. They can't move on. They can't live for what is today. They can't enjoy the things that they are having today. the gift that God is giving them, they're neglecting what is important, what is good at this moment. Today, speaking of wisdom itself, the preacher tells us that wisdom is better than wealth. We may neglect the opportunities for much good in the present by dwelling in the past. Wealth has its advantages. Money can serve as defense in life. We can see that in chapter 7, verse 12. Money can attract many friends. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 20. Chapter 14, verse 20. The poor is hated even of his own neighbor, but the rich had many friends. The rich has many friends because, if I stick with this guy, maybe, like freebies and things like that. So some people do think that way, and money can attract many friends. I don't know if they're real friends. How wisdom is better. Riches do not profit one in a day of wrath. Proverbs 11, verse 4. Riches profit not in a day of wrath, but righteousness deliver it from death. The presence of wealth often makes things worse. That's where managers and business partners fight over who gets the money. Wisdom gives life to those who have it. Wisdom will make the best use of one's wealth as a defense. And wisdom will help one weather the storms of wrath. Wisdom is better from all the riches that we can accomplish. And we saw that in the preacher's life. I've acquired many things. I've built big houses, big gardens, courthouses for myself, for my wives. But yet, none. To him, everything is still vanity. The wisdom that he had, he also said that the wisdom, I still have my wisdom. To see it in the humanistic approach, the humanistic point of view, everything is vanity. But having wisdom helps you make better decisions. Finally, the preacher gives the following counsel for a better life. Resignation is better than indignation. Verses 13 to 14 of our text. Consider the works of God, for who can make that straight, which he had made crooked? In the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider, God also has set the one over against the other. To the end, the man should find nothing after him. There are some things we cannot change. God has his purpose, which we cannot change. His purpose allows for both days of prosperity and adversity. Now we need to deal with this in the best way possible. Enjoy the days of our prosperity. Lord, God said that enjoy what you have labored. The fruits of your labor, enjoy that. Enjoy what I have given you. This is a gift from me. In the days of adversity, consider what lessons might be learned. The Lord doesn't just send, adversities, trials, in order for you to falter, to just be down. I mean, what was the saying again? Trials are not meant to break us, but to make us. It does no good to get angry about things we cannot change. As we saw earlier, there is both a time to weep and a time to laugh. In conclusion, what has the preacher taught us? Simply that honor is better than luxury. Our name is going to live longer. Our reputation it's going to say a lot more after it is said and done. Your death day is better than your birthday. A funeral is better than a party. The end is better than the beginning. Patience is better than pride. The present is better than the past. Wisdom is better than wealth. Resignation is better than indignation. If any of this sounds foreign to our thinking, bear in mind that it comes from one who experienced everything life has to offer. He definitely had all the riches, all the power, He asks for wisdom in order to be the good judge. This is from a person who found life under the sun lacking. This is from a person who offers counsel from the perspective of wisdom and inspiration, who provides this counsel that we might make the best use of our time under the sun. Are we willing to accept this counsel and benefit from it? Or we will learn the hard way, and often only too late to do much about it. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now in our next lesson next week, we shall consider his counsel regarding a balanced life. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for this wonderful day. Thank you for the lesson that you have given to us. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to learn about your word. Thank you for this opportunity to learn about the preacher's life, how his counsel, how that he's giving to us could benefit us in our everyday lives. I pray that we have learned, and we have received what you have in store for us. May my all the glory, all the praise, and praise, all especially in Amen.